Hello there, and welcome back to Demon Souls. Last time we ventured forward with a Temple Knight Patrice, and things did not go so well. Suffice it to say, she died, so let's try again. This time with a character class chosen by you, the lovely viewers. So, a pretty cool thing about this game is that as long as you've beaten the tutorial at least once, then on all future characters you are given the choice to skip it. Although this is not something I would recommend that you do because you pick up a number of items during the tutorial that if you skip it you'll miss out on, and they can come in quite handy during the early game, which is where you're likely going to have the most difficulty, at least in my opinion. So we shall be doing this again.
Brave soul who fears not death. I shall guide you. So that you may lull the old one back to slumber.
So, as you may have noticed, we are no longer playing as the Temple Knight. Instead, we are now playing as royalty, named Fran. No specific reasoning behind that choice of name, it's just what popped into my head. So, royalty came quite clear as the frontrunner of the pack, with a total of 13 votes. Thief was actually somewhat close behind at 10, and all the remaining were much farther behind, with the highest being 4. And I think I know why most people voted for royalty, assuming that they have foreknowledge, that is, because the thing is, despite starting at the lowest level, which would lead you to think that royalty is perhaps the toughest class, royalty is kind of actually objectively the best class. Personally, I prefer Temple Knight just because of what it starts with specifically, but for most players, whether they're new or returning veterans, they're going to do best with royalty. For a few reasons. For one, the royalty starts with the buckler, which has a somewhat improved parry. It's easy to time your parry attempts. And they also start with a weapon that goes along with that excellently, the rapier. It's quick and its attacks don't do too much damage, but its criticals, ripostes, and backstabs are incredibly potent. Even more overpowered, the royalty is one of 2 classes to start with magic, the other one being magician, of course. The royalty has a silver catalyst as well as a silver coronet, both of which, when equipped, boost the MP. And it's a pretty sizable boost. Let's actually put that catalyst in the left hand though. That's how I prefer it. Maximum attacking options. So as you can see, with the relatively low cost of Soul Arrow basic attack spell, we have the ability to attack at range quite a lot, even more so considering the final piece of equipment that the royalty starts with, a ring. It's one of the only classes to start with a ring, in fact. This gives a small amount of MP regeneration, and honestly, despite it being a small amount, it's pretty potent. It won't recover enough MP for you to have an immediate cast, say, in the thick of things, but when you're journeying through a long area, it'll really add up. So let's venture forward and see how things fare for us. Yep, that is a lot of damage, about as much as we were doing as the Temple Knight with a few halberd swings, with much less threat of danger considering that we can do so from far off. Are you seeing yet why the royalty class is kind of overpowered? Really, just magic in general is quite strong in this game, so keep that in mind if you choose to decide to vote for that, for me to use it in the future. Whether that keeps you away from it or just entices you further to vote for it, I guess that depends on the individual now, doesn't it? But yeah, while as the Temple Knight we had taken a few hits up till this point, we've not taken a single one. And that really is just the power, not just of magic in this game, but of ranged attacks in general. For both you and the enemy, for that matter. Whether it's magic, bows, crossbows, what have you, it's a good thing to have. But magic is not the only thing we have, so let's try out some other stuff. As you can see, we don't do a whole lot of damage with our basic attacks, but they're quite fast, so it does add up. The real downside to the rapier is that its moveset is pretty much non-existent. It's just a series of pokes. And so if what you're fighting is not best faced with narrow pokes, you're going to be having a bit of trouble. But of course that's when we can just whip out our magic, so it's not that big of a deal. The real power, of course, as I mentioned, is criticals, and we'll see that coming up ahead. Let's try it out against this rowdy boy right here. Yep, that sure is 273 damage. And a reminder that even if you're not that great at parrying, the royalty starts with a shield that makes it easier for you. Are you seeing yet why the royalty is straight up the best class? Let's see how we fare against this blue-eyed knight. That's about what I expected. But what if, even with the shield, you're just not good at parrying, which is totally fair. Again, that's why we have our magic. Can start spamming at ranged, and even if he puts his shield up, there's not too much he can do. This is equally effective against other players if you ever end up in a situation where you're fighting them. Which is a thing that can happen, in case you're not aware. It's kind of funny, even the fact that the Royal starts off at level 1 is in fact a bonus despite seeming not a good thing. Because you'd think that that would make them start off weaker, and I guess in some ways it does. But in the long run it makes you much stronger because it gives you more levels that you are free to spend points on. And thus it gives you a lot more control over where you want your character to head. So you have both a strong start due to the starting equipment, and a strong future due to all the possibilities, which, thinking about it, is kind of how wealth works in real life, so I wonder if that was perhaps the intention of the developers with the class, or if it just worked out that way. Either way, eat the rich, but not me, please. Yeah, we're already almost at the end of the tutorial. Let's finish off this last regular enemy with a parry. And pick up that remaining grass all the way over here. Wouldn't do to leave it behind. And we are about ready for the boss, the demon vanguard, who slaughtered us quite quickly as Beatrice. Let's see how Fran ends up faring. So, no matter what class you are, if you try and strike at the Demon Vanguard with your melee weapon, you're not going to be doing all that much. He is one beefy boy. However, you'll notice that I just said melee weapon. Yeah, magic is pretty damn effective against him. And while he does have a tendency to one-shot due to his massive damage, he's also incredibly easy to avoid if you just hug his ass. That's actually an adage that's going to be true for a lot of enemies in this game. So just kind of hug his right side, his right ass cheek, and very little of what he can do can actually hit you. You don't even need to dodge all that much, actually. Something to be worried about though is that he does have a swing intended to deal with that is quite quick, right there. So if you are a bit closer to his front, that will likely hit you and do a lot of damage. But again, just kind of hug his ass and you'll probably be fine. If he does start to back up against a wall, and it's tough to stay in that safe spot, it can be worth just backing off and getting him to approach you. That way you have more room to maneuver at that point. But yeah, once you want to stay in the safe spots in this fight, it's really not tough at all. I am being a little bit risky here going for those dodge rolls though, because if I fail it, I would probably end up being one shot. The best thing to do is to try and bait out this stomp, which he tends to do if you're directly at his butt. But it's by no means guaranteed that you can get him to do that. So while it's a good opportunity for damage, don't rely on it too much. And let's finish it off with a good old poke. I love poking things in the butt. The demon was destroyed. You shall obtain the demon's soul and a power that is beyond human imagination. And that is our first boss down. Even have a special boss soul from it. Let's have a look at that. The soul of the demon vanguard. It radiates a strong power. Grants the holder a large number of souls when used. Alternatively, it can be made into spells, miracles, or weapons. A very good item, and oh, look at that soul count. Nice. So let's see what's beyond the Demon Vanguard. That doesn't sound terribly good, but you know what, we didn't have much trouble up to this point. How bad could it be, really? We're rich, we're tough, we're beautiful. How could we possibly face any... That is a considerably bigger boy than the one we just fought. He also showed up in the introductory cutscene, which I recommend watching if you haven't. It's quite good. Yeah, I don't think we do very well facing him, so we can hopefully avoid that. Fortunately, there are a number of useful items scattered about, potent healing items, as well as upgrade materials, which we'll get into later. That's a whole thing that is not too terribly fun to deal with, but I promise to cover everything. So yeah, for avoiding dying to that boss, we get quite good rewards. Unfortunately, we're only able to stave off death for so long. Yeah, as far as dying goes, you kind of don't have a choice.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended. This is the Nexus. It holds together the northern land of Boletaria. Thou canst can't not exit the Nexus, but each of the 5 archstones will connect to another.
Fortunately, it's not all that bad. We have died, but the Nexus has trapped our soul. We cannot escape the Nexus. Okay, maybe it is a bad thing. However, by capturing demon souls, we can reclaim our physical body. And we have the Nexial binding, the symbol of our bondage. Let's have a gander at that as well. The symbol of those imprisoned in the Nexus. Having this ties you to the Nexus. Even if you lose your physical body, you cannot die, and your soul remains trapped. The Nexial binding sends the user back to the Nexus upon death, but all souls collected will be lost. So if you're out and about and exploring and you're having a rough time, you can always just port back to the Nexus immediately. Albeit at the cost of any held souls. Very much not nice, that. Well, there's a message on the ground, so I did think there would be a hint, yes. If you don't know what this is about, don't worry, I'll explain it in a little bit. For now, though, let's just gander at the Nexus. It's an interestingly designed place. I think it is perhaps my favorite location in the game, and perhaps even the greater Souls series in general. It's just so mystical, so eerie, and in such an odd, kind of calming, but also somewhat lightly threatening fashion, if that makes sense. It really does stand out. It's also somewhat homey. Ignore the puddles of blood littering the place, because there are actually people here that we can talk to.
Well, you slipped through the fissure too, did you? You came for demon souls? Or to save this land and be remembered as a hero? Hunting for demons? Try one of the archstones. Now go. That is why you came, is it not? To this accursed Boletaria. You came for demon souls? Or to save this land and be remembered as a hero? It's all the same. You're just another prisoner of the Nexus. We're welcome here, as long as we keep slashing up demons. You came for demons? Where?
So, this boy here is the Crestfallen Warrior. It's quite an apt title, isn't it? He's a Dawa sort of fellow, so let's leave him alone and see if anyone else is friendlier. But before we do, one thing I want to say, first and foremost. When you are in the Nexus, de-equip your weapons. Repeat with me now. When I'm in the Nexus, I'll de-equip my weapons. The reason being is, if, say, maybe you set down your controller, or you're just not the most dexterous with operating one, and you accidentally press one of the shoulder buttons to attack, and you hit one of these gentlemen, or gentle ladies, gentle people, you will deal damage to them. If you have your weapon out, there is a good chance you will deal enough damage to royally piss them off. Or even kill them, if you're late enough in the game. If you piss off an enemy or kill them, there is no way to undo it. You lose the use of their services for the rest of the game. These NPCs here provide perhaps the most important services in the game. especially this boyo right here. So, once again, for the last time, repeat with me. When I'm in the Nexus, I'll de-equip my weapons. It's simple, easy to follow, and very much worth doing. Alright, now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
I'm Stockpile Thomas. When the scourge came, I didn't know what hit me. When I came to, I found myself here, in the Nexus. My wife and daughter fell victim to the demons. But I would be worthless in battle. At the very least, I hope to lend my assistance to you brave slayers of demons. I would be happy to lighten your load and look after any excess baggage. When the scourge came, I abandoned my wife and daughter and fled like a madman. When I came to, I was in the Nexus. I haven't dared venture outside these walls since. I wish I could do more, but I am ignorant of the world beyond these walls. That Candle Maiden cared for me during my first days in the Nexus. She says very little, but has a kind heart. She's just the age my young daughter would have been. The poor, poor girl, trapped here with her eyes occluded by wax. If only something could be done to help her. If only something could be done to help her.
So, Thomas here, as his title and baggage would suggest, is responsible for holding our items. If we look at certain screens, we'll notice that we have an item burden stat. This is the total accumulated weight of everything that we have on us, everything we have equipped and everything that we have in our bag. Armor, weapons, grass, anything that has weight. Souls, of course, do not have weight, not physical weight, at any rate. And if we go over our total capacity, we will be greatly slowed in our movement, to the point that, while it's certainly not impossible to play the game, I really wouldn't recommend trying it. It's not fun. And that is why Thomas here is invaluable. He'll act as a very useful storage feature. So let's do that. Get rid of some of the heavier items in our inventory that we'll probably won't be using, which actually isn't much at the moment. Always dump your upgrade materials, there's no reason not to. And yeah, remember how I just mentioned that if you aggro or kill someone you can't use their services and how that can be a big pain in the ass? I'm sure you're starting to see exactly why that's the case right now.
Rest assured, your goods are safe and sound with me. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you.
Never mind the fact that Thomas is a very good boy, and I would be incredibly upset if I pissed him off.
You new here? Do you hear from my services? My name's Baldwin. Just an ordinary blacksmith. It's simple. Just bring me all the souls you can. In trade, I'll give you weapons, or forge ones you already have. With your souls, I can eke out a living. And with my weapons, you can go on living. Not a bad deal, huh? Perhaps you've already heard, but there's another blacksmith at the entrance of Stonefang Mine. He's an eccentric old man, but he knows his trade well. He's the only sane one left in a town of soul-starved men. If you do meet him... yeah, well, forget it. That stubborn old ne'er-do-well will just ignore you. There aren't enough blacksmiths in this temple to handle all the work. Only certain ores can be used to forge weapons, but you'll just have to make do. And be thankful that I'm still of good health. And be thankful that I'm still of good health.
So, Baldwin here is a bit of a curmudgeon, but he is also quite useful. He is responsible for upgrading our equipment, which we actually have the capability of doing right now, thanks to that sharpstone we picked up. That's the big reason why you want to kill the demon vanguard. It's an early upgrade that otherwise you'll be missing out on. Now, it is something perhaps that you may want to consider not doing on the other hand, because upgrade materials in this game, they're not hard to come by per se, but you do require a lot of them. The price to upgrade just increases sharply, so if you're not sure that you're going to be using a weapon long term, you might want to consider holding back on upgrading it. But the rapier is pretty fun, and I would be fine with having a somewhat easier time, so let's do it here. I can always farm if really need be. Now we could upgrade our buckler, well, with one more soul, but we could gain that pretty easily. But it's really not all that worthwhile. The only thing upgrading a shield does is boost its physical attack, which you're never going to use because you're not attacking with a shield. As well as its guard break reduction, which is the percentage of stamina damage that you take when you block an attack. We're not going to be blocking with the shield all that much, if at all, so that's not really useful. The Heartstone is better saved for weapons or other shields. More importantly perhaps, Baldwin can repair your equipment. Fortunately, none of it needs repair, but if you lack in your diligence and let your weapons become damaged, they will become less effective. Same with armor, shields, basically anything that has durability. So it's good to stop by every now and again. He also sells a few items, some basic healing, MP restoration, durability restoration for quite a high price. Kind of gouging a little bit there. As well as some basic weaponry, if whatever you started with as your class doesn't quite appeal to you. I'm fine with what we got though.
Do come back alive. I need your business.
Last but not least, we have this pleasant lady over here.
Oh my. How has this happened? Has God abandoned us for failing to show proper respect to King Alant? Oh, Mbasa. Oh, Mbasa.
Yeah, she doesn't have too much to say to us at the moment. She's kind of wrapped in her prayers. So that's it for NPCs in the Nexus, at least for now. There is also the Candle Maiden who we saw a little bit of, but we could search all over the place and we would not find hide nor hair of her. So we'll just leave that alone. Before we proceed onwards, let's discuss one thing. So these puddles of blood lying around. These, as well as the messages we've been seeing, are left by other players. Bloodstains are left whenever they die, showing the last few moments of their death. As you can see, people really like to attack the crestfallen warrior, and it does not go too well for many of them. He may be sad, but he's not unskilled, that's for sure. The messages can be placed specifically, using preset words and phrases to convey things to other players. Hints, potentially misleading hints, just funny jokes, what have you. And you can do so at any time by pressing the select button. At least if you're in online mode, which, given the servers shutting down in under 2 weeks, is not going to be for much longer, alas. And speaking of messages, if we head down these stairs here, we'll see a ton of them. These are developer-left messages, and they'll always be around. This is basically the equivalent of the instruction manual, I suppose. It has quite a few useful tips. So if you're new to the game, it's worth reading them, even if they are somewhat cryptically worded in some instances. But I know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna leave them alone. Alright, let's get our weapons re-equipped, so we're ready to face the world. And let's use the only archstone that is currently open to us. If we try these others here, we'll find that they're sealed. Can only go to one place at the moment, the Archstone of the Small King, which leads to the Bolitarian Palace, a huge stone castle in the heart of the northern kingdom of Bolitaria. Hungry soldiers whose souls have been stolen by demons attack trespassers, and terrible dragons nest there.